My name is Naomi, and if I could sit beside my 12-year-old self right now, I'd tell her one thing. You were never the broken one. They just needed someone to blame. But back then, I didn't know that. I just knew that. Every photo frame in our house had someone smiling in it, and none of them were me. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in the comments from where are you watching this video. I was the youngest of 3. My brother Eli was the golden boy straight A's, captain of the soccer team, always getting "you're gonna be someone" speeches from dad. My sister Marla was the quiet genius, the artist. She painted flowers that looked like photographs. She played cello. She always smelled like lavender and got surprise hugs. And then there was me, Naomi. I didn't have a thing. I was too much, too loud, too emotional, too clumsy, too everything at least. That's what my mom said. You're exhausting. She used to whisper through clenched teeth. You always find a way to ruin the peace. I didn't know how a child could ruin peace by asking for more than a banana for dinner. But somehow, I always did. It was subtle at first. The way everyone at the dinner table had full plates grilled chicken, green beans, homemade mac and cheese, and mine always had less. Watch your calories, Mom would say. You're filling out fast. Eli would laugh under his breath. Marla would just look away. But it wasn't the food that made me question myself. It was the silence. Silence is louder than screaming when it's aimed only at you. When I was 10, I made a clay sculpture of a horse. It wasn't perfect, the legs were uneven, the tail drooped, but it was mine. I left it on the counter, hoping someone would see it. The next morning, it was in the trash. And no one said a word. I started to think, maybe I was broken, maybe I was dramatic. I cried too easily. I asked too many questions. I felt things too deeply. My mom called me high maintenance. My dad said, you've always been sensitive. Learn to take a joke. Marla said nothing. Eli laughed. They all made me believe that the way I felt was the problem, not the way they treated me. But the worst part wasn't the dinners or the trash can. It was the therapist. When I turned 12, my mother decided I needed help. Something's wrong with you, she said one night after I panicked during a thunderstorm and tried to crawl into her bed. You're too old for this. You scare your siblings. Go get dressed. We're seeing someone. We drove in silence to a little office with fake flowers and a ticking wall clock. She told the therapist I was unstable. She smiled and used words like erratic, delusional, and volatile. I just sat there, mute, frozen, staring at my hands, wondering if maybe they were the problem too. The therapist prescribed something. I don't even remember what, but I remember the feeling after, like fog inside my chest, like being underwater without swimming. The pills made me quiet. So they kept me on them, but the pills didn't make the bruises stop. I never told anyone about those, not the school nurse, not even the kind woman at the library who always remembered my name, because who would believe me? I was the unstable one, the attention seeker. And every time I brought up something strange like why Dad's belt left marks or why Marla's diary had pages ripped out, I was told the same thing. Naomi, your memory plays tricks on you. You dream things. You make them up. So, I stopped asking questions. I started writing them down instead. In a red notebook with a loose spine and a broken lock. It lived under my mattress. I filled it with questions. Why doesn't Dad ever hit Eli? Why did Marla's arms have lines on them? Why does Mom smile in public and hiss in private? Why is it always me? I wrote and wrote until the pages curled and the pen ran dry. Then one day, it disappeared. That night, no one spoke at dinner. But the next morning, my mother called the school. She told them I'd been stealing, lying, that I needed supervision. I was suspended for a week, not because they found anything, but because she sounded so convincing. She had concerns. She played the victim beautifully. My red notebook was never mentioned, but I knew they'd read every word. That was the week I stopped talking at home. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in the comments from where are you watching this video. But I started listening, really listening, and the more I listened, the more I realized something chilling. They needed me broken, because if I was the broken one, they didn't have to look at themselves. If I was the problem, then the bruises didn't need explaining. The whispering didn't need context. The gaslighting could stay buried under smiles and church dresses and PTA bake sales. They didn't want to fix me. They wanted to use me as a mirror they could shatter every time they felt ugly. But mirrors remember what they reflect. And one day, I decided I would too. It started the day I met Miss Janine. She was the school janitor. always wore blue gloves and hummed jazz tunes while mopping the halls. She saw me sitting alone near the gym with a paper towel on a bloody nose. She didn't ask what happened. She just knelt down, handed me a cold soda, and said, "You don't look broken. You look like someone they're afraid of." I blinked. Why would anyone be afraid of me? She smiled and pointed at my eyes. Because you see everything, don't you? That was the first time anyone had said something about me that didn't feel like a curse. And that was the day I began to watch on purpose, every lie, every cover-up, every whispered conversation. Because if they needed me to be the villain in their story, I would become the author of mine. By the time I turned 15, I had learned how to smile without showing any teeth, how to make myself small, how to be useful without being seen. I cleaned the house before they asked. I stopped crying. I even brought my mother tea when she was upset, chamomile, her favorite. She never thanked me. She just said, "Took you long enough to be normal." But I wasn't trying to be normal. I was trying to survive long enough to leave. Every lie they told about me became a brick I stacked quietly. I was building something, not a house, not a home, a record. I found an old MP3 recorder at a garage sale, the kind reporters used in the early 2000s. It didn't look like much, but it worked. I started keeping it in my hoodie pocket, just in case. The first recording was of Marla, my perfect sister, screaming at Eli behind the garage. "You're not the favorite, you idiot. You're just the muscle. Mom only likes you because you scare people." That was the first time I ever heard someone else speak the truth out loud. Eli shoved her against the wall. I kept the recorder running. The second recording was more important. It was my mother, whispering into the phone late one night in the kitchen. "She's got eyes like her father's mother. That insane woman." I swear the madness skipped a generation and landed right in Naomi. Pause. Maybe I should have left her at the hospital. Giggle. No, I'm joking. Obviously. But still, she wasn't joking. I could tell. I started organizing the files, labeling them with timestamps, hiding them in a password-protected folder in the school library computer under a fake login. It was safer there than at home. Home wasn't home. Home was a performance, and I was just the stagehand everyone pretended not to see. But something changed that fall. I met Kira. Kira transferred from another school. She had messy hair, chipped nail polish, and a laugh that sounded like it didn't care who was listening. She saw me reading alone under the stairs and sat next to me. No invitation. Just dropped her bag and said, "You look like someone who needs a real friend." I looked up, unsure whether to run or smile. But I didn't move. Not right away. "Are you always this forward?" I asked. "Only with people who look like they've been lied to their whole lives." That was the moment. The moment my heart cracked just enough for air to get in. I didn't tell her everything. Not at first. But I told her enough. About the cold dinners, the disappearing notebooks, the whispering in the next room when they thought I was asleep, the way they called me unstable every time I told the truth. Kieran never flinched. She just listened. And then she said, "Let's build something they can't touch." We started a podcast. Not public. Not yet. It was just for us. We recorded monologues, stories, thoughts, whispers from the cracks in our walls. We called it the Basement Files because both of us knew what it felt like to be the family secret. We made up fake names, edited the audio with royalty-free music, and slowly, we started posting them under a burner account. No faces, just voices, just truths. And people listened. By winter, we had over 5,000 downloads. Strangers messaged, "That sounds like my mother. How did you get inside my house?" This feels like something I wasn't allowed to say out loud. We weren't alone anymore, but we were still in it, because at home, the abuse didn't stop. It just got smarter. They stopped yelling, started mocking. "Naomi, did you take your meds today? You're twitchy. You really shouldn't be out of your room when guests are over." She has moods. Once, during a family dinner with the pastor over, my mother laughed and said, "We're thinking of converting the attic into Naomi's art space. You know, where she can scream without scaring the neighbors." Everyone laughed. I didn't even correct her. I hadn't screamed in years. They just needed to pretend I was unstable because otherwise, they'd have to explain themselves. But lies have expiration dates, especially when you track them. And the day came when one of mine finally cracked. I was 17 when it happened. Marla went missing for 4 hours one afternoon. Everyone panicked. Police were called. Dad nearly flipped the couch looking for her phone. Then she showed up, stumbling. eyes glassy. She said she'd been at the park, but I knew that wasn't true. She wasn't sunburnt. She wasn't dirty. She reeked of lavender and vodka. I didn't say a word, but that night, I played back an audio file I'd accidentally captured through the wall vent the day before. If Mom finds out I'm sneaking out to see Caleb, she'll lose it. He's 25, Naomi. She'll send him to prison and me to therapy again. And just like that, their perfect daughter became the liability. My mother found the recording. I don't know how. Maybe she snooped my bag. Maybe Marla told her. But I came home from school the next day and found everything destroyed. My laptop, smashed. My clothes, torn. My drawers, empty. I stood in the doorway as she stood there, hands trembling, red in the face, and screamed, "Are you trying to ruin us? Is that it? You want to drag this family through the mud?" I didn't answer. She slapped me so hard my ear rang, but I didn't cry, not this time, because the drive wasn't in my laptop, it was in my sock. That night, I walked to Kira's. We uploaded everything, audio, timeline, scans of bruises from years ago. Kira added voiceovers, anonymized, professional, haunting. We scheduled the release. It went live on a Thursday, episode 1. The Scapegoat Theory, a calm 20-minute breakdown of how families create designated problems to avoid facing the truth. Episode 2. The Dinner Table Doctrine, real recordings, real quotes, real silence. Episode 3. The daughter they almost erased, it exploded. TikTok found us first. Clips went viral. People commented, "This sounds like my sister." This was my whole childhood. I wasn't crazy. I was the scapegoat too. By Sunday night, we were top 20 in Apple Podcasts, Society, and Culture. At home, the storm hit hard. I heard them whispering in the living room. "Do you think it's Naomi?" "No, she's too dumb for that. It's probably someone we pissed off. We need to find out who started this." They never said sorry. They just got scared. And that was enough for now, because the final act hadn't arrived yet. That would come next, when the house started to fall. After the podcast went viral, I didn't return home right away. I stayed with Kira and her aunt for a few days, just enough time for the story to settle, just enough time for them to stew in their own silence. I didn't need to scream. The internet did that for me. Within 72 hours, a teacher at school stepped down. He'd once sent my mother a card encouraging her to stay strong after my first suspension. Now, he was distancing himself. The comments were brutal. Reddit threads popped up. The TikTok sound, "She's got eyes like her father's mother." The madness skipped a generation, went viral. People made skits, animations. One girl even painted a watercolor of me faceless, arms outstretched, standing in a hallway filled with whispers. I'd never felt so seen by strangers. At home, they were losing grip. Eli lost his football scholarship. Someone submitted the audio clip of him calling a female classmate a dog who should be leashed. Marla deleted all her art accounts. She was too afraid to post anything without people commenting, "You paint flowers, but you stomped on your sister's light." And my mother, oh, my mother, she tried to play the victim one more time. She went on a live stream with the pastor's wife, tears in her eyes, wringing her hands. "We've always supported Naomi. She's just troubled. It's sad, really." The comments flooded in. "Gaslighter. Say her name. How does a mother not hear her own child crying?" Then came the letter from the school board. They were opening an investigation into past complaints of emotional neglect involving students from our household. They didn't name me. They didn't have to. I was no longer invisible. But the part I remember most was the voicemail from my dad. "Naomi, I don't know what you think you're doing. You're ruining this family's reputation. We gave you everything. A roof, food, clothes. And this is how you thank us." Pause. "You better hope this blows over. No one likes a liar, especially not an ungrateful one." Click. I listened to it twice, then saved it, then sent it to the pastor and the podcast inbox. It became episode 4, The Cost of a Roof. But I didn't want just digital justice. I wanted something real, something I could touch, something they couldn't take back or delete. So I called Miss Janine, the janitor, the woman who once told me, "You don't look broken. You look like someone they're afraid of." She wasn't just a janitor. She was also a housing advocate for youth in the system. Within weeks, she got me a meeting with a community program that helped abuse survivors find independent housing. The best part, they had a special clause for compensatory rent adjustments for any minor who'd been wrongfully removed from their home without legal grounds. Turns out, my mother pulling me from school and gaslighting the school counselor was a bigger deal than she thought. They offered me a grant for education, housing, and relocation, and that's when I made my move. I went back to the house, but not for closure, for claiming. I walked in during dinner, quiet, no camera crew, no shouting, just me, wearing the same hoodie I wore the day they called me delusional, except now, I stood straight, they froze. My mother dropped her fork, Eli sat up straight. Marla looked like she saw a ghost. "What are you doing here?" she asked. I looked at my father. He didn't speak, didn't blink. I placed a folder on the table. Inside, a printed transcript of every podcast episode, photos of my bruises, screenshots of every trending post, and on top the grant approval letter with my new address. No one opened it. I didn't need them to. I simply said, "You said I'd never survive without you. Turns out, I bloomed when I stopped needing your light." I turned to leave, but my mother stood. "Wait, Naomi, you're still my daughter." I paused. For the first time, I looked her in the eyes without fear and said, "No, I'm my daughter now." And I left. A month later, I moved into a tiny one-bedroom flat to cities over, white walls, squeaky floors, second-hand furniture, but it was mine. I painted the walls yellow, hung string lights, framed my first piece of art, a page from the red notebook I thought I lost. Turns out, Miss Janine had pulled it from the trash and kept it all these years. The page read, "I don't know what healing feels like, but I know what not dying feels like." And maybe that's the first step. The podcast kept growing. By the end of the year, we had sponsors, mental health orgs, college counselors, even one anonymous donor who offered to fund a full season. We used the money to build a tiny recording studio in the back of Kira's aunt's house. We called it the Echo Room because truth doesn't fade, it echoes, sometimes louder than screams. I never saw my parents again, but I heard about them. My mother tried to sue the podcast. She failed because all the stories were anonymized, no names, no direct accusations, just truth. Eli dropped out of university. Marla moved to the West Coast. But me, I stayed. I taught workshops for girls in group homes. I read poetry at open mix. I held storytelling nights at the Echo Room, and on the front door, a plaque, "You were never too much, they were never enough." Final narration closing. If you ever felt like you were the crazy one, if they made you carry their sins on your back like they were yours, if they told you to be quiet because the truth was too loud, then this story is also yours. Because scapegoats don't stay weak. We grow horns, we grow wings, we grow freedom. Please like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. Have you ever walked away from the people who said they'd never let you go just to find peace on the other side? And if no one has told you today, you are not too much. You are not unstable. You are not their sin. You are the survivor. And now, you write the story.